Stories. Marketeers love to talk about stories, myself included. They are a massive part of telling the stories of the people behind a brand, and that's what I love doing with Campkins Cameras in Cambridge. They've got a great story to tell, and it starts way back in 1800. Here's an episode that talks about the past, present and future of a family business. Over to you, Campkins. Campkins Cameras has been a feature on the Cambridge High Street for decades, and the company's roots go as far back as the early 1800s. Campkins is a family-run business that's still going strong despite the modern-day challenges facing high street retailers, from e-commerce to the pandemic. So we decided to speak to Owen, who has followed in the footsteps of his dad and granddad as owner of Campkins Cameras. We popped over to the Copper Kettle, just a few doors down from the shop in King's Parade, to talk about the company's history and what it means to be an independent retailer today. How are you doing?
I'm good, Chris. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. So we're in the Copper Kettle, King's Parade in Cambridge, just a few doors down from your shop. Tell us a bit about Campkins Cameras.
So Campkins has pretty much been around forever, I think.
Yeah.
I don't
feels like it.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's many people who would ever not know, who've lived in Cambridge, not know there being a Campkins in and around town. So I call it a privilege that I followed footsteps of my dad and my granddad.
Yeah.
And obviously there was a Campkin family before that. That's where the name originally came from. And we've had shops all over the place as well, but very fixed on Cambridge now, and happy to call it my home. So
good stuff.
And the home of Campkins.
And so tell us a bit about the kind of the history of Campkins. Like how did Campkins start out?
Yeah. So we know there was a Campkins chemist as early as 1800.
Okay, wow.
Obviously the family name was Campkin at the time. I can't tell you too much more about that era, but I have actually got old books that have a list of poisons that people were having at the time, as they call them, rather than medication.
Really?
It was
morphine and stuff like that. Yeah. And the rest.
So my granddad must have joined Campkins in the 30s or 40s.
Okay.
And he obviously had a big interest in photography and started doing, obviously, chemist and chemistry. They used to do all the developing of film.
Okay. That makes sense.
In the attic of the Rose Crescent shop, he set up a darkroom, and while working for the Campkins family, and when he took over the business, he changed it more in the direction of cameras rather than the chemists that it was. Although we still had our Rose Crescent called the Scientific Campkins for a long time into the 90s,
which is the chemist side of things.
Yes, indeed.
Wow.
He kept buying other new shops and new businesses, and would normally tell my dad to go out there and run the business.
Yeah.
So my dad was lucky to meet my mum when he went over to Ireland to open up a camera shop over there, and we had shops in and around East Anglia, Lincoln, Peterborough, Newmarket. In London, we were in Bond Street in London, so we were expanding quickly, as they said back in the 70s.
Yeah, nice.
Different world in a way, but it was quite an amazing feat to have this little shop in Cambridge go all around England and Ireland.
It's brilliant. Well, and it just started from Rose Crescent, basically. That darkroom.
The Rose Crescent was the original shop, even way back in 1800. So
wow.
Shame we're not there anymore, but I'm quite happy with our location on King's Parade. So it's a pretty good view we have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a beautiful location. So kind of when did you first pick up a camera?
Well, I suppose like any baby as well, not just me, but I had a camera shoved in my face from a very early age.
Yeah.
But I probably saw more cameras than most babies at that point. So I suspect at the grabbing stage of childhood, I was probably grabbing at cameras because there were probably plenty of them around. My dad was very good at bringing his work home, so
I bet, yeah.
you know, I sort of have recollections of first taking a picture maybe at 4 or 5 years old.
Okay.
So I suppose it's a bit like children today and seeing their parents with mobile phones. It wasn't a mobile phone for me, it was a camera.
Yeah, it's just natural for you to pick it up, isn't it? Because it's so around you, yeah.
Exactly.
So I seem to remember, so you had the yellow van.
Yes.
That had lots of kit in it, didn't it? And you used to take that on the road, is that right?
So the yellow van was meant to symbolise a Kodak film. It was painted in the colours of Kodak.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
So hopefully to make it quite recognisable what we were doing inside the van. But yes, I mean, I believe my granddad first did Farnborough Air Show back in the 50s.
Okay.
And again, I believe I was only about 2 weeks old when I first went to a Farnborough Air Show.
Your first air show.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
So, yeah, my mum wasn't allowed to stop working just because she had a little child.
No, absolutely. You got stuff to do. Yeah.
So, yeah, and that's probably where I first picked up the bug. Was, you know, I got dragged around a lot of these shows, and they were fun, but you got bored at times. So to get rid of the boredom, I started selling stuff, easy stuff at the time, mainly films. But my main expertise at that time probably came in binoculars.
Okay.
So I really enjoyed selling binoculars at the time, and you know, it came naturally to me. And the film cameras took a bit longer at the time, but again, it wasn't long before I picked that up, and I think my dad started shifting me out to our Dublin shop when I was about 16 to help with the stock intake over Christmas. So, and then when I was 18, maybe just 17 still, I was a youngster for my year. Over the summer holidays, I did 3 months in Ireland where I learned how to use the printing machines and worked in a shop regularly. Full time it was kind of. I think I got some good cheap wages out of it.
I bet, yeah. Well, you got to earn your stripes somewhere, haven't you?
Yeah. And I suppose when I came back from that sort of training period in Ireland, he offered me a full-time job here in Cambridge, and as they say, the rest is history.
And so when did you become owner then?
So I was a partner with my dad in the King's Parade branch for probably in the late noughties, so around 2008. Yeah. When my auntie decided she didn't want to be involved anymore. Okay. And so my dad and I were partners, and then I took full control, unfortunately, when my dad passed away. So.
Good old Barry.
Yeah. So from a partnership into a sole trader, and we've kept on running it like that since. So.
Amazing. Quite a story. And so obviously, being a business that's been around for so long, times have changed a lot over those years. So, how has Campkins managed to adapt and kind of stay relevant to customers over the years?
I think the key to staying relevant is to look after your customers first and foremost. Yeah. So, if you can't get that right, then you're almost saying see you later. So, I think that's the key to being relevant. When I say that, most towns used to have a camera shop, and very few do now. So you have to be clever in the way that you market yourself, and Campkins, I believe now, has kept a lot of its old traditions, but also adapting some new ones. But weirdly, some of the old traditions have sort of come back. So film photography is becoming huge at the moment. Film developing, film sales, film cameras. I only wish that one camera manufacturer would bring out a new camera that, instead of selling, which, by the way, I love selling second-hand equipment because, the feel and the retro look of the equipment is amazing. if one of them was brave enough to go back and see what was happening, I think that company would do some fantastic business.
Well, surely if the demand is there, then companies will always go towards that demand, though. So
I think your traditional camera brands, they can't see it at the moment.
Yeah. Okay.
So if it is a new camera coming out, so film camera, it will be a new brand name of some. Well, maybe not a new brand name, but they might reinvent a brand name.
Just to kind of re-disrupt the market, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. And so we touched on some of this already, but obviously we've had a certain thing called the pandemic hits over the last 15 months.
Yeah.
Being a local business in Cambridge, a local retailer, it's tough for lots of companies, isn't it? But I think it's been challenging for local retailers for longer than the pandemic. So what does it take for a kind of local business like yours to survive during the pandemic? You still go strong?
Again, I'll go back to looking after your clients, your customers, your base. So you've got to get that right first and show that you're willing almost to move mountains for them, and that's what I aim to do each day I go into the shop. So it hasn't been easy, particularly supply of equipment has been pretty difficult. I know what kept me sane during lockdowns was I was able to pop down to the shop for a couple of hours each day, and my dog Ledley particularly enjoyed those times because he got more attention when he came to work. But you've just got to put in the hours and the time in those situations, and it was lonely at times because I had a working staff of shop floor staff of 4 members of my team at the time, which we still haven't. We're still down to 2 members of a shop floor staff at the moment. So but the shop almost kept me sane in a way, and interaction with people over the phone, by email. It's in a way, I always prefer to see people face to face, but the people that did contact me during that time were just kept me going as well. So obviously I'm very happy that they remembered me, and we had to get out there as well. So you might have seen our social media side of things grow dramatically during that period of time. I think we probably are, because I'm a traditional shop, I probably boosted my online presence by probably getting a year ahead of myself, maybe even a lot more than a year. So it's you adapt, you change, and that's why Campkins have been around for many a year already, and we plan to be for many a year more.
Well, it kind of goes back to that dark room in Rose Crescent, isn't it?
Yes.
Your granddad has gone, right, let's try something out, and ultimately what's come from it is all those shops that came from it, and the fact that the business is still here is that adapting, and I think definitely businesses just maybe trying something even though they don't necessarily know how to fully do it, is just do something different first of all.
I have a good team behind me as well who are pushing me on regularly. So
that's interesting what you mentioned about team, actually. So before the pandemic, you had a shop with decent sized team for the business. So what was that like, kind of then moving from having that team to just yourself?
Well, as I said, if it wasn't for the customers calling in, I think I was probably going insane, because and my partner would have probably, there might have been a few axes thrown around. Not to say that we're in a good place, but you
absolutely.
Never know what might have happened.
Exactly. It's been a challenge for everybody, indeed, isn't it? Yeah, definitely.
So I love seeing people. I love interacting with people. I've always been, when I talk about teams a lot, I've created teams in the shop now because I think it's a better way of working. But I was always part of a team in sports as well. I never really was an individual sportsman. I always used to work better in groups. So the team and group and people aspect is what makes me want to go to work in the morning.
Yeah, and that's ultimately goes back to the thing about how you treat your customers.
Yes.
Yeah, and moving mountains for them, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's great to see that you've now got more people back in the shop in terms of your team as well. So going on to like kind of the future, what excites you for the future of Campkins?
I'm really pleased that I'm getting sort of brand backing from a number of the suppliers now. So they're obviously seeing what we're doing is working, and they're really helping us out, and that makes me excited for the future because we're expanding our base, and we in this day and age, yes, obviously I've gone on about it that I love seeing people face to face, but we're helping people all around the country and all around the world in a way. So with the social media presence, we've been picked up in America, Australia, in Asia, so it's fascinating to see how one small brand name can get their knowledge out there to the whole world. So I like to see us continue to grow. I unfortunately I don't see that growth in, i.e. opening other shops around the area. But I see it as keeping our Cambridge base and seeing how we can grow in Cambridge, and there are other ways of showing growth that don't include opening new shops. So I'm in it for the long haul. I have a family name to keep up the presence of, as well as a Cambridge institution. So what's also delighted me, and I mentioned it earlier, was things that I thought might have been dead by now, like film photography. It excites me each day that I'm not just shoving boxes out at a cheap price just to the volumes. It's about making sure that you find that you talk to a person, you find the right piece of equipment, you put it in their hands, they're happy with it, and to then have people come back and show what they're creating is also very important to us. It shows that we're doing our role right, and the people, I hope, come back and see me again. That's so the future is a good one, I believe, and I'll go back to, on the day, come back to my binocular sales, as I did when I was a kid, and obviously, so from the under £10 film sale to the £2,000 to £5,000 camera sale, it all excites me still. So we'll keep on running how we're doing. We'll see what opportunities arise and keep our eyes open and how the market's changing, or going back.
Well, that's kind of this interesting what you say is, I think that goes back to this thing about the way you treated customers. It's basically you're doing more than just slinging product at somebody. You're showing a deep interest in people's passion for photography, because that's part of your own history and part of a big part of the business. So I think that's something you just wouldn't get if you were just an e-commerce.
I think if you were just slinging boxes at people, people. I think it will create more problems in a way. So I'd rather make sure that the person who's buying from us gets the right product the first time without throwing things backwards and forwards until you hit the right target. And it's not how I would ever want to run a business as well. I think if it came to that stage, I would either drop out or have sold the business on.
Yeah.
So, and that again is not my intention to do so. So I'd rather see people achieve success from the help that we give them.
And actually, if customers, people who go online, to get a good deal on kind of camera equipment, there's a good chance they've been burnt by going for the lowest price, but actually then feeling there's no help at all, there's no comeback for the person who sold it, and actually there isn't that customer service that you guys clearly bring.
So it frustrates me sometimes, but we have helped people who haven't bought equipment from us, and they've run into troubles, but at the end of the day, they've got a camera and we're here to help people with their equipment. So I'm not going to say I'm not dealing with you, like I have heard some business do, and hopefully they learn from their mistakes and they will come and see us the next time they're looking for a piece of equipment. So we do whatever as I said earlier in the conversation, we try and move the mountain to help people get what they're looking for, know that they've got the right piece of equipment in their hands, and as I said, to get the results that they aim to achieve.
Nice. And you've so 3 years ago you created Cambridge Photography Show, and of course pandemic in the Guildhall, and the pandemic kind of stopped that from happening, and you introduced something new in replacement of that last year, didn't you? So Cambridge Photography Week.
Yeah, so obviously we mentioned earlier about the yellow vans and going around the country to shows. So the Cambridge Photography Show came out of me wanting to set something up here locally that to give something back to my customer base. So actually it started in Milton Community Centre. Was the first one, and then the following year we upgraded to the Guildhall, and the following year after that, obviously we got struck with the pandemic, so we did a virtual Cambridge Photography Week instead of Cambridge Photography Show. So again, giving it was all free, so the shows, the customers could come in free, they could interact with the brand trainer and experts, so they could find the right product, and the King's Parade shop is a fantastic shop, but it is a small shop. I can't always keep every single item that's available on the market, so to bring the brands into a larger space, to bring as much equipment as they felt like they could bring, it helps me to see if there's an opportunity that I may have passed by and that they have on their supply, and it's great to see the people interact, and the virtual event was again a bit like I'd like to see people face to face in the shop, so that the show is probably more me than the virtual event. But to be able to get hold of and see and communicate with the base of again, not just Cambridge but further afield, it's fantastic to see that we were still able to recreate the event. And obviously this year we're hoping to recreate the event again. So we have 5 days of virtual event and 1 day of a show. So it's again the ever-changing world we're living in. We're changing and adapting the event again. So Cambridge Photography Week and Cambridge Photography Show is all combined in one this October.
Yeah, good stuff. Long may it continue. Just last thing is though, you clearly have a love of cameras and photography, but outside of that, what are your other passions?
Well, Chris and I obviously used to play a lot of hockey together when we were kids. Chris had other sporting interests, and he was a rugby and tennis man, but I was a cricket, and even though my school didn't like the subject of football, what they would prefer to call soccer, I was always mad about. Maybe growing up in North London, I was hooked by something else early doors. So there's 2 teams in North London, but I do support the right one. So.
Absolutely. Come on, you Spurs.
But obviously I had a little baby girl during the pandemic time, so that's keeping me very occupied at the moment. And again, just a bit with the shop, just being social and interacting with people. And that's why the pandemic, wasn't my favourite ever period of time, as I'm sure it wasn't for most people. But I need an interaction with people. And I'm happy to do that through a camera, but seeing people face to face is more what I do and happy with.
Well, great stuff. Thanks very much, and it's Friday, so looking forward to the weekend. Let's grab a coffee and then get back to the shop.
Yep, excellent. Sounds good to me.